To another edition of your favorite movie review here at 3TV. I just got a chance to see Pet Sematary, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, it is good. You're going to like it. You're going to love it. You're going to hate it at parts. I'm going to confess that there were a couple of moments where I sort of kind of had to side-eye the whole thing. I couldn't necessarily stare at the screen and watch it. Now, if you get into the story and you really get into what is occurring in Pet Sematary, which is pretty similar to the original one that was adapted from the Stephen King book. So if you know anything about the plot, you know that there's a family that moves from the city of Boston. They move into rural Maine, into a small town, and there's a few little quirks that the town has, specifically with their dead pets. Now, obviously, the title lets you know that, and in the trailer, you notice that there's a cat that is involved in the situation that sort of appears as like a front runner to the whole thing. So there's no secret there. Things die, they bury them in the pet cemetery, or in this case, beyond the pet cemetery, and then they somehow sort of come back. That is the basic premise of the film. Now, I didn't realize that there are some people who really don't know the second layer or the deeper layer into the film. So I'm not going to spoil it in that sense, because it will be very impactful if you watch it without knowing all the particulars of the film. One thing I will say, though, I am a parent. I'm a father of 2 children. And after watching the film, you're going to want to hug your kids a little tighter for a little longer, and maybe watch them a little closer as well, because the movie does touch upon those themes of how far will you go to protect your family. Now, the star of the film is Jason Clarke, who we know from one of the Terminator remakes and a bunch of other films that he's been in. He's quite a presence. He was in Zero Dark 30. He was quite a prominent character in that one as well. His co-star is Amy Seimetz. I've never really seen her in a prominent role before, although I could be mistaken. I'll look deeper into that. John Lithgow is in the film, and John Lithgow has been in everything. I don't have to mention any of his credits. I would never finish this episode if I was talking about John Lithgow's credits. Now, the little girl who is in the trailer, who is also a centerpiece of the movie, who in the original Pet Sematary, the character is played by a little boy. So now they kind of switched the gender, and now it's a little girl. Her name is Jete Lawrence. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Jete or Jet Lawrence. Really great characterization by this little girl. You are going to both fall in love with this little girl, because she's, a cute little 9-year-old girl is the age that she plays in the movie, and she loves her parents, and her parents love her, and she's very close, but she's quite adventurous, and she's sort of gets into mischief, things that maybe if she lived in the city, it would not be allowable or even possible for her to do. Now that they live in the rural town, she sort of has the ability to go and explore. And in her explorations, she discovers a few things that maybe she should not have been exposed to. So that basic move and that basic change that the parents did in order to sort of give her a better life and have more of a family life ends up backfiring on them. The movie has plenty of suspenseful scenes, plenty of slow camera zooms that leave the audience waiting and anticipating, which is what a horror film is supposed to do. There's a lot of anxious moments and a lot of jump scares as well, where you're startled by a certain scene, by a certain thing that occurs. The trailer sort of gives you a preview of what you're going to get. There is that infamous truck that speeds by, zooms by where this family lives. You will get plenty of that in the film. That's not a bait and switch. What they showed you in the trailer, they will deliver. There are scary moments. There are moments where you kind of have to look away, like I mentioned earlier in my review. So as far as recommendations for this film, pay for it. Go see it. If you like horror films, you are going to get what you expect from a classic horror film. Stephen King, earlier in the earlier views of the Rotten Tomato people of the film, he was quite adamant about how sometimes remakes get it wrong, but in this case they did it well. And so this remake although some people would argue was not necessary, that the original film was great, is sort of a revamping and a reissuing of a classic story by Stephen King for a new generation. So for older people who remember the original, it's not going to take anything away from the original. It might even add to the experience. And for people who have never seen Pet Sematary, the original one, or even read the book at all, or have any familiarity with the story other than what they've seen in the trailer and maybe read in the synopsis of the film, it is going to pay off with dividends. If I take off my glasses here, you might see some dark circles, and some of it is just age, and a little bit more of the darkness around the eyes is because I didn't quite get as much comfortable sleep as I would have wanted to, but it was worth it. Pet Sematary, ladies and gentlemen, is a must-see. Pay for it. This has been another edition of your favorite movie review here at 3TV.